Hey everybody, Jordan Belfort here for Whiteboard Wednesday. And the topic for today is negotiation. And the reason I chose this as the first topic for Whiteboard Wednesday is it's one of those things that, while it's not traditional sales, it is such a sales-centric skill set that unless you know how to get your point across and essentially win the argument or the sale or the negotiation, you're not getting anywhere. Now, when I teach negotiating in a formal setting, I have a 7-step process that's fucking killer. I mean, literally, it will allow you to so-called win the negotiation virtually every time. For the purposes of Whiteboard Wednesday, I want to distill that down into 3 simple steps here. Things that you could use straight away with no training, just like you hear them, you keep them in mind, you study a bit before I go into negotiation, and you're golden, okay? So let me tell you what these 3 things are, and these are literally going to change your life in terms of your ability to enter a situation where there is a negotiation and know that you're not going to end up on the ass end of it. Bottom line, all right? So let me start off with the first tip or the first step of what I like to call straight line negotiation, and here's what it is. You must enter the negotiation knowing the negotiating landscape. Let me tell you what that means. The biggest mistake people make when they negotiate is that before they enter the negotiation, they don't even know what a win looks like. They don't know what it means to them. What would they get if someone like myself, who's like a world-class negotiator, was negotiating on their behalf? What would I end up with? What's the fair deal? In other words, what does a great deal even look like? See, what happens very often, I'll give you an example in car sales, right? Someone walks in to buy a car, and they pride themselves on being a tough negotiator, and they walk into a dealership, and they ask for a price that's irrationally low. Like, the dealer could not sell it to them at that price. It's never going to happen. But because this person walks in and not knowing the landscape, what's a great deal? Let's say a great deal for a new car is $51,000, right? That's a great deal, right? If you don't know that beforehand, you might be trying to shoot to get the car at $45,000. And guess what? No matter how hard you negotiate, no matter how many tricks of the trade you apply to it, like, take the winner's side of the table, take control, all this shit they teach you in negotiating, it's not real world negotiating. At the end of the day, it's bullshit. Because unless you know where you're supposed to end up, nothing works. You waste your time, you waste the person's time, you come off like an asshole, or maybe you think that a winning negotiation is $56,000. But guess what? A great negotiator like me could get 51. And you walk out, I got them for $56,000. And I was like, what a fucking moron that is. I just got the guy for... See, you have to know the landscape before you enter the negotiation. Let me give you a great example with a company that you know, and that was in the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, Steve Madden's shoes.
Steve Madden. Steve.
Now, I have tremendous respect for Steve. I think he's a great guy, very smart. But back when he was first starting off in his early 30s, he wasn't quite as schooled in the art of negotiation and in business in general. Steve came to me, and he had one shoe, and he had no real revenues, and he wanted to build a shoe company. He said to me, listen, I want you to invest in me, and I want to start this company. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, Steve, how much do you need? He goes, I need $1 million. Just threw out a number. I said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do, Steve. I'll give you $1 million. Give me 85% of your company. He's like, really? Man, done. Go. Oh, my God. He's so fucking happy, right? Well, guess what? That decision haunted Steve for the rest of his business life until, I don't even know if he ever made it good, though. But the point is that I ended up owning virtually all of Steve Madden's shoes. Now, here's the irony. The next day, because I got such a great deal, I over-negotiated for myself, right? I turned around the next day and took 85% that I had. I sold off 35%. Guess how much I got for it? $1 million. And I ended up with 50% of Steve Madden's shoes for free. You get it? Steve's 2 huge errors. Number 1, he did not know what a win would look like before he entered. He thought, oh, fuck, 50%, great, I got 50%. He didn't know that no school negotiator in that situation would ever give away more than 50%. Seriously, they just wouldn't. That's one mistake he made. In addition, this is more of a business tip now, is that he asked for more money than he needed. He asked for $1 million. He didn't really need $1 million. So he was off in that department too. But just in terms of the negotiation, he didn't know. He didn't know the landscape. And because of that, he got screwed. Okay? Now, let's move on to step 2, which relates directly to step 1. In step number 2, we have the fact that in a really great negotiation, both sides have to feel like they won. If one side wins big, like I did in Steve Madden's shoes, and the other side gets caught holding the proverbial bag of shit, well, guess what they do? They'll fucking sue you. They'll figure out a way to break the contract. They'll try to stab you in the back. They'll underperform. There'll be resentment. It doesn't breed a long-term partnership. So here's the deal. When you're negotiating, just because you can rake a weak negotiator over the coals, don't push it to the point where it's so one-sided, the victory, that they'll turn around, because what will happen is they'll eventually run into someone who does know about negotiating in business, and they'll say, what the fuck did you do? How could you give away that much? Are you crazy? And then they'll start resenting you. And you know what? The truth is, a contract is only the basis for what? A lawsuit. Anyone could sue you on a contract and try to get out of it and break it. Now, maybe you'll win, but who wants the legal troubles and the hassles and so forth? So the point is that both sides have to feel like they won. It can't just be where you rake someone over the coals, hit them over the head, use your straight line negotiating tactics, which I teach in the larger course, right? Where you can just bat someone to death and, they end up hating your guts for it. It's not a way to build a business, and it's also really not ethical. It's not illegal, but it doesn't set the stage for long-term success, okay? Very important point. And then lastly, number 3, I didn't even write it, by the way, so let's call number 2 is win-win, right? Number 2. Number 3, the final point of straight line negotiating for Whiteboard Wednesday is understanding the value of what I call intangibles. This is a huge thing. It's probably one of the most things that really allow me to win virtually every negotiation that I enter. What I mean is that before I enter any negotiation, I do my homework. And I find out what are the intangible things that have very little value to me, but have huge value to the other side. In other words, for example, let's say I'm looking to hire somebody. Well, what might I give them that doesn't really cost me anything, but makes them feel great, has value to them, right? What would it be? How about a title? The right title. How about giving someone the key to the executive washroom, as the old phrase goes, right? How about the right parking spot? Let me tell you something. At Stratton, back in the day, where your parking spot was the most coveted thing. So if I wanted to really close a deal and get someone to really come, say, you know what, I'm going to give you parking spot number 4 right in the executive line there. Fuck, that's worth $500,000 a year. Worth nothing to me, a lot to someone else. Title's worth a lot to someone else. So always remember, whenever you enter into a negotiation, you want to do a couple of things first. Number 1, do your research. Speak to someone like myself. Now, if I'm coaching you, I'm mentoring you, right? You can just send me an email or a text, say, hey, I'm entering this negotiation. What should I ask? What would be a win for me? And let me tell you what the landscape is. I know virtually every business out there. If not one colon, I know. So you got to know what your landscape is. And if it's not me who's your coach or your mentor, then go to your mentor or coach or do some research at least. But don't fly in blind or you get Steve mad. And again, no disrespect. I love Steve. He's a brilliant guy. But that was something that happened very young in his career and he learned from it. Okay, we all learn from our mistakes, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is make sure that you don't over-negotiate so that you clobber someone over the head, because in the end of the day, it doesn't set the stage for long-term success, and you'll have a resentment and angry person on your hand, and that just, it's fucked. It doesn't work out well, okay? That's number 2. Number 3, the intangibles. Make sure that before you enter, do the research, figure out all those intangible items that you can give away, and then what you do is you hold those back and you negotiate the tangible items first. Someone's salary, a stock bonus, an earn-out, with all these different things. There's so many different negotiations, right? I can't list them all here. But the point is, there's always going to be these 4 or 5 intangible items. And at the very end, you throw those in, say, you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you the parking spot. I'll make your title so-and-so, okay? And I'll give you the health club membership here on the executive account here. And believe me, It's going to set the stage for a really long-term relationship, and you'll be glad you did this. Welcome aboard. Just giving you an example. In other words, you wait till the very end, say, sound good? All right, is that fair enough? You're ultra reasonable man tone. So you give them those deal cards. Is that okay? Deal? That's how you close a negotiation. Remember, there is so much bullshit out there about negotiating this course, that course, guerrilla negotiating, lion negotiating, freaking, negotiating from out of fucking space, right? The bottom line is, practically speaking, if you just did these three things, you protect yourself. To get to the next level, of course, we can dig deeper. But this is a huge asset to you to go out into the world knowing how to essentially get the best end of negotiation every time versus the ass end. And with that, that concludes our Whiteboard Wednesday. And I will see you again next Wednesday for another lesson. Take care and good luck.